23rd, I call this meeting of the Clear Creek Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called and that its notice has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. And I guess we will go to the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Cunningham. It is my pleasure to share some remarks of commendation and appreciation for Dr. DuPont, and then we'd like to share a brief video. As you all know, Dr. DuPont has held the District 1 seat since 2013, and she's really had service as a district volunteer for more than 16 years. And what's clear is that she really raises the bar in terms of service as a trustee, and that relates because of her tremendous work ethic and because of her contributions. So Dr. DuPont does her homework. She asks thoughtful questions, and she reflects carefully. And her work ethic is reflected by the professional learning that she completed in order to earn designation as a master trustee. And she is a systems thinker. She constantly emphasizes the importance of examining our instructional and operational processes and asking how we can use processes to improve. This really includes a focus on the development of and monitoring of good measures. Now, while she's a systems thinker, she is also very much a people person, focused on each and every student. She reminds everyone that for students, school should not be just about academics. Like even if you're a student who can take 5 academic placement classes, that shouldn't be just what it's all about, or getting the highest grades, or being in the top 10%. She emphasizes that we should foster the growth of the whole child. And many of you all know that her 3 sons graduated from CCISD, but really tens of thousands of students benefited from her service. And in fact, if we were to ask her for her advice for how to operate as a district moving forward, I'm pretty confident that the notion of focusing on what's best for all students would be a part of her response. So check out this brief video regarding her service.
Dr. Laura DuPont has been part of the Clear Creek ISD family for over 2 decades.
The oldest son is 24 years old, and I actually started getting involved in PTA when he started kindergarten. So I was recruited from preschool and started on PTA and have been going ever since.
From the beginning, it was important to her to support Clear Creek ISD.
It was always about what was going on for the children and making programs better for children, being active in the schools, knowing what was going on. We brought in some incredible reading nights and math nights, different curriculum type things, the science night, really figuring out how to get kids excited about the curriculum and the things that they were learning.
Dr. DuPont has set the bar for our district. Her involvement in service before she got involved, serving as a trustee, supporting fine arts, honors, academics, robotics, athletics, the list goes on.
From PTA to the school board, Dr. DuPont's experience helped make CCISD stronger.
Totally committed to public education and excellence in education at CCISD. Without a doubt, that was her passion too. Every day with her on the board was making CCISD better, every day. She was always thoughtful, thorough, committed, researched. Being a process person, so plus she had a calm demeanor.
After 9 years on the school board, Dr. DuPont is stepping down, but her willingness to be an advocate for students in education isn't over.
I have learned from so many people over those 9 years, learned about how the district works, how education works, and that includes even fellow trustees, and all the people I've worked with have been incredible. And so I think just that opportunity to learn and build relationships and keep growing, because now all around I can be a better advocate for not only the district but also for education and for children.
It is my pleasure to present this to you, and it has your dates of service, May 2013 to 2022. Thank you for your service. And we'll do one photograph, but then I'd like to ask family members to come forward as well.
I can't leave without saying something, and you knew that, but I'm going to try to not say a lot, and actually I have one thing that I think will sum up most of it, but I just want to say thank you. It has been my honor, my pleasure. It's just been so special serving for these last 9 years, and working with all of you has made it absolutely incredible, and you know that my belief is that this entire board working together with the administration, when everybody's together working towards the same goals, children, doing what's right for children, the district will advance and everything will be good. So I hope everybody remembers that too and thinks about that in terms of service. And I do have to leave one thing that I didn't just leave things the other day. I have one thing that I picked up the other day when I was at Armin Bayou when they did their Leader in Me celebration. And the kids had made little magnets about things, and this magnet kind of stood out to me, and I wanted to take it and leave it with the board as something to remember going on. And this magnet says, "Be a light, not a judge. Be a model, not a critic." So those are the words that I'll leave going on. Thank you all.
Before you leave, we had a little token for you, but we're also, as a board, we're going to make a donation to the Education Foundation. We're just waiting for something pertaining to the Education Village, but I wanted you to know that we're going to make that donation in your honor, and I left you just a little token, and I think we also hopefully had a card. Okay. We'll get it to you, but hopefully all the trustees had a chance to sign it and everything for you. But thank you for your service. It's been a pleasure working with you and learning from you, and wish you nothing but the best. So. And next, we'll move on to administering the oath of office.
Of Clear Creek Independent School District Board of Trustees
congratulations to you both. And now we'll move on. After elections, what we normally do is have our executive board elections as well. So with that being said, I'll open it up, and we'll start off, I guess, president, vice president, then secretary. So I'm going to open it up for nominations from the floor for president.
Mr. President,
Mr. Sanchez.
I'd like to nominate Jay Cunningham for the office of president.
All right. Are there any other nominations
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Scott Bowen.
for president?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Seeing no nominations, no further nominations, I will first go to Mr. Bowen's nomination. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And that's 3. And then I'll move to the next nomination. All in favor of Jay Cunningham? And that's 4. So next, I'll open it up for vice president.
Mr. President, I nominate Scott Bowen for vice president.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
Yes, I'd like to make the recommendation or nomination for Arturo Sanchez for vice president.
All right. First, we'll work on, since Mr. Sanchez was the last one, we'll work on that one first. All in favor of Arturo Sanchez as vice president, please raise your right hand. And it looks like that one passes 4-0. And next, I'll move on to secretary.
Mr. President,
Mr. Sanchez.
I'd like to nominate Jonathan Cottrell for the position of secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Are there any other nominations?
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Scott Bowen for secretary.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? Seeing no further nominations, we'll work on the last nomination first. All in favor of Scott Bowen as secretary, please raise your right hand. Okay. And all in favor of Jonathan Cottrell as secretary, please raise your right hand. And so that nomination carries. So our executive board will be Jay Cunningham, me as vice president, or me as president, I'm sorry, Mr. Sanchez as vice president, and Jonathan Cottrell as secretary. And next, we'll move into closed session. It is roughly 6:15 p.m. The board will now move to closed session as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.001, concerning purposes permitted by the act, including 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, 551.074, deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignments, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public employee, or to hear a complaint or charge against an employee. So we will move into closed session. session at 6:53 p.m. And we will move immediately to the administer oath of office. And welcome back, Mr. Bowen, and welcome, Ms. Cheka. Next, we will go on to the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge.
Thank you. I'd like to ask our two student pledge leaders to meet me down front in a moment. Riley Renaud, Clear Springs High School Lightning League President, and Praise Wonkwo, Clear Springs High School Student Council President.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. So we are thrilled this evening to have multiple recognitions, and it's fitting for a school board meeting that we're holding as we wrap up a school year. So our hero in the hallway this month goes to some outstanding students from Clear Springs High School that you saw just moments ago. The Clear Springs High School Student Council and Lightning League Club led a heartwarming week of activities to bring awareness to students with special needs. Each day was a different color, featuring a different ability, and the activities culminated with an autism color run. There were dozens of students involved in the planning, and tonight we've asked the officers of both the Student Council and Lightning League Club to come forward to be recognized, as well as the sponsors and principal as well. Please join me in recognizing them. So we'll do a photograph in a moment, but before doing so, I would like to ask, now I lost them, there they are, Riley and Praise, to tell us a little bit more about this important week. So Riley, can you tell us about what the Lightning League Club is?
Okay, so for Lightning League, it's a club that was started years ago with her help. It's really awesome. So we got to just kind of help students develop friendships just in ways that some people maybe didn't think they would be involved with our school, but they did, and it's been a lot of fun. We've done meetings once a month, and then doing the color run and leading up to it, we just did different events each day for different special needs, and it was really heartwarming just to see students be involved in our school campus.
And I appreciate you handing it, Praise. I wanted to ask you, how did you include students with special needs in the various activities?
included them by highlighting their different disabilities and like bringing them into the cafeteria and helping and letting them or allowing them to help us sell different items we were selling like on Monday with the red items to represent autism and highlight the disability.
And finally, Riley, what would you say you learned most importantly from this experience?
I think from this experience, the most I've learned is just how everybody is so different, yet there's something that we all love that's the same. And it was just really cool seeing everybody get together and just embrace the differences in our campus.
So I'd like to ask everybody to join me again in recognizing these outstanding leaders. We'll move into 2 rows for a photograph. So from Clear Springs High School, we moved to Clear Springs High School. And I'd like to ask all those involved with SpongeBob the Musical to please come forward so I can tell everybody in the audience about your amazing accomplishments. And also Mr. Houston and the other staff members here. So the Tommy Tunes Award nominations, they're really one of the highest honors for school theater. And the official name is Theater Under the Stars Tommy Tunes Awards. So Clear Springs High School's SpongeBob the Musical was nominated not just in 1 category, but in 8 categories. And so pretty impressive. That includes Outstanding Musical, Outstanding Ensemble, Outstanding Performance in a Lead Role. Nominations included Ryan Hoxie, who played SpongeBob. Ryan, will you raise your hand? And Jaden Strong, who played Patrick. And Grace Chauvin, who played Sandy Cheeks. And Outstanding Performance in a Supporting Role, Andy Rodriguez played Pearl. Carson Campbell, who played Eugene Krabs. And for Outstanding Costume Design, Heather Cindy, Cole Prouty, Rebecca Nepomniachtchi, Rosie Curtis, Madison Martin, and Sonia Martin. And of course, we are thrilled that we also had in the Outstanding Director category, Mark Stonebarger. And Outstanding Music Direction, Rob Phillips as the choir director. And Outstanding Choreographer, Rosie Curtis, Theater Assistant Director. So congratulations to all, and the winners will be announced on May 27th, but pretty dang impressive just to have all these nominations for a wonderful production. So job well done. Now we really are moving to Clear Brook High School. And it has been a special week for one Clear Creek ISD Bowl in particular. So Nathan Galicia, will you please come forward so I can tell folks about your accomplishments? Nathan was inducted into the Texas State United States Bowling Congress Hall of Honor. He is the fourth Clearbrook bowler to receive this great honor since 2009. Only one or two bowlers in the entire state are inducted every year. And he also received the Youth Service Award. And so, Nathan, I do want to ask you, many people may not know that we do have a really robust bowling program at Brook. I'd love to hear, how did you get started in bowling, and what are your plans in the future for bowling?
Well, my brother got me started. He's somewhere over there. He started bowling when he was 7, and I kind of just followed in his footsteps. I bowled for 10 years now, so I've kind of bowled my entire life. But I plan on going to Newman University to also bowl while studying chemistry forensic science. Yes, my brother was inducted as well to the Texas Hall of Honor.
Wow. Do you have a little brother? Well, well, fantastic. So if we can pose for a photograph, that'd be great. So. Fantastic. Now, we are impressed to recognize students from several high schools, and we're specifically congratulating 34 high school students who had their artwork advanced to the Texas Art Education Visual Art Scholastic event this month in San Marcos. And this event recognizes exemplary high school student artwork at the state level. And so I'd like to ask all of our honorees to come forward, and then as folks are coming forward, I'll go ahead and read names. From Clearbrook High School, McKenna Butler, Helen Jiang, Mahid, Cindy Wynn, Karsten Senders. And from Clear Lake High School, Carolina Cologne, Ching Sen Hu, Vivian Mays, Jake Pubens, Tiana Tran, Isabella Ugalde, Luisa Zaretsky. And from Clear Falls, Brianna Alberto, Kira Bowen, Ashlyn Ezel, Melissa Fu, Susana Gattes, Johnny Hart, Alberto Lintao, Xavier Luciana Rivera, Colby Moon, Maria Smija, Sasha Stevenson, J.C. Styla, Vincent Tron, and from Clear Creek High School, Olivia Bim, Olivia Brown, Julia Chapman, Addison Clay, Karna Lube, and from Clear Springs High School, Nicole Hicks, Eliza Hoffman, Emma Moore, Kennedy Pugh. And clearly not all of them are here, but we wanted to call each individual name because of the significant recognition that this is. And so please join me in expressing appreciation for this accomplishment. Well, fantastic, and congratulations, y'all. If we're all set for photos, then we're done, so thank you. Next up, we're recognizing students associated with Business Professionals of America. I'd like to ask you all to come forward so I can share some information about your accomplishments. So as our honorees are coming forward, I want to share that Business Professionals of America is also known as BPA. It's a career and technical student organization that includes industry-validated competitive events aligned to the career area of business administration, accounting, information technology, human resources, and computer programming. And their events directly contribute to every student being college and career ready when they graduate from high school. So I want to recognize the following outstanding BPA members for their accomplishments in the 21-22 school year. They successfully placed at the state level competition and went on to represent Clear Creek ISD at the National Leadership Conference. So we're pleased to recognize from Clear Lake High School, Jacob Hirsch and Brandon Moore, the global marketing team, Yanming Wong, IT specialist software development, Andrew Nguyen, medical diagnostic coding, Alan Shin, database applications, Microsoft Office specialist, and from Clear Horizons Early College High School, Pratista Sharma, advanced interview skills, and Jack Maddox, health leadership. Congratulations, fantastic work. And I'm told just now that Jack earned 6th in the nation, so that's awesome. And can our DECA honorees please join us as well? So you all know the DECA acronym. What it stands for is Distributive Education Clubs of America. It's a career and technical student organization in the career areas of marketing, business management and administration, and finance. And we want to congratulate the following outstanding Clear Creek ISD DECA members for their accomplishments this school year. They also successfully placed the state level competition and went on to the DECA International Career Development Conference. And so from Brooke, Mauricio Constanza, Automotive Services Marketing, Jonathan Yang and Faze Marita, Integrated Marketing Campaign, Zara Varani, Quick Service Restaurant Management, Connor Blue and Daniil Merchant, School-Based Enterprise, Food Operations, and also Clear Brook School-Based Enterprise, the Wolverine Market, received a gold certification. And from Creek High School, Clear Creek High School, Giselle Mingivar, Quick Serve Restaurant Management, Role Play. And from Clear Falls High School, Olivia Firar and Connor Reimer, School-Based Enterprise, Food Operations. And Paris Koch, Eva Luna and Caitlin Horton, Sales Promotions, The Village Vault. Also, I've got to give a shout out to Clear Falls School-Based Enterprise Food Operations, the Village Vault, because it received a gold certification and was named a top 10 finalist at the DECA International Career Development Conference. And from Clear Lake High School, Sophia Fair, Marketing Communication Series, Alan Shin, Finance Operations, Colin Shin, Business Services Operational Research, Tiana Wang, financial consultant, and she was named a top 10 finalist of the financial consulting category. And I'd also like to ask any other administrators or team members that aren't already up here, I'd like to invite you all up front to join us. And please join me in honoring these significant accomplishments. And you all, let's try 2 rows. So if some people can step back. Fantastic. Excellent work, you all. And if our honorees from FFA can come forward in a moment. So as they're joining us, I'll just share that FFA is a career and technical student organization for those interested in agriculture and leadership. And we are thrilled to congratulate these outstanding FFA members for their accomplishments at the 2022 Galveston County Fair. Students from across all 5 comprehensive high schools participated in the livestock show this past April. 4 students walked away with top honors, being named grand champion or reserve champion in their respective divisions. And so we are thrilled to honor this evening Naomi Browning from Clearbrook High School, who earned Grand Champion Steer and Grand Champion Heifer, if you can raise your hand. So, and Avery Robinson from Clear Springs High School, Grand and Reserve Champion Rabbits. Casey Klages from Clear Spring High School earned Reserve Champion Goat. Madison Stoyanov from Clear Creek High School earned Best of Show Art Project. And we are also thrilled to congratulate Clear Falls FFA Floriculture team on their recent success at the Texas FFA Career Development State Contest. Falls placed 4th at the state contest hosted at Sam Houston State University on April 29th. And the Floriculture team is comprised of Vanessa Ekstrom, Kaylee Hatcher, Jaden Long, and Brady Chavers. Congratulations. And if administrators and any other faculty members that are here from those schools can join again. Fantastic. And if our health occupation students can come forward as well. If our health occupation students can come on in, that'd be great. And as they're joining us, let me just note that Health Occupation Students of America is a career and technical student organization that empowers future health professionals to become leaders in the global health community. So we are thrilled to recognize the following individuals. Each of these honorees placed at the state level competition and are going on to represent Clear Creek ISD at the host of International Leadership Conference in Nashville, Tennessee this coming June. So from Clearbrook High School, Anasantra Sijo, Prepared Speaking, Adria Rose Wynn, Organizational Leadership, and Tara Duvall, Sports Medicine. Fantastic work. And we're also thrilled to celebrate their faculty members that have supported them and principals, if you can step forward again as well if you're here. Thank you. Congratulations. Fantastic. Do we have amazing students with amazing staff members backing them up or what? That's pretty enjoyable. Well done, everybody.
give us a couple minutes as we pause.
Okay.
And fantastic. Always a good day when we get a chance to recognize our students and their accomplishments, especially as we roll up on the end of the year, cognizant of graduations as well. Next, we will move into community input. The purpose of community input is for the entire board to receive feedback from citizens. The board will hear the public comments but will not respond except as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act to respond to an inquiry by a member of the public or by a board member with a statement of specific factual information, a recitation of existing policy, or to deliberate a proposal to place a subject on the agenda for a subsequent meeting. Matters brought forth that require a response will be addressed by the superintendent as appropriate. All information received is subject to verification. Community input is scheduled for 30 minutes and has 2 forums. Those requesting to address the board in advance of the meeting are granted 3 minutes to address their topics, and those who sign up this evening prior to 6:30 are granted 1 minute. In a district our size, there will certainly be issues or topics which will understandably generate considerable interest from the public. It is important that members of our community be able to address the school board respectfully without disruption and without fear of intimidation from other attendees. On behalf of the board, the superintendent, and CCISD staff, we welcome your input during CCISD school board meetings. We request that everyone exhibit the respect and understanding each person rightfully deserves when addressing the school board during the public input portion of the meeting. And we have 10 speakers tonight. They all fall under the 3 minute. And we will start off with Mr. Todd Vermont, Mrs. Tanya Jackson, and Mrs. Jackie Rasco. Welcome, Mr. Vermont.
Thank you. Greetings and thank you for hosting me. My name is Todd Vermont, and my wife Paula in the back, and I are proud parents of Haley, who's also going to speak this evening, and Stephanie, who are sophomores at Clear Creek High School. We're here to support the fine arts and are completely against the proposed cuts in the fine arts programs across the district. We've heard all sorts of reasons on why cuts are being made. We've heard CCISD has lost 1,800 students, which is approximately 4% of the population. We've heard that the district is also soon to lose $12.4 million in state funding, which, according to my calculations, based on the current budget, is about 2%. However, here are some other numbers I'd like to share with you. According to the College Board, students with 4 years of fine arts education score 10% higher on the SAT exam than those who don't. According to the NEA, when it comes to dropouts, students involved in the fine arts are 5 times less likely to drop out than those who aren't involved in the fine arts. Yet, CCISD is considering cutting the staffing for the Creek Choir program, all staters by 25%. and cutting some theater programs, I've heard, by as much as 50%. Programs like the Springs program that was here with all the Tommy Tunes nominations. How do you reconcile cutting fine arts staffing by as much as 50% when funding shortfalls combined are only at most 6%? Some of the girls' best teachers and experiences have been in the fine arts. Whether you go all the way back to elementary school with Coach Goodsell and the students performing in The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, that set our girls up for success. My daughter Haley turned down the WAVE program specifically because she wanted to be in the class of Mr. Brownfield, the orchestra teacher at VLI. And she doesn't regret that decision for a second. She'll remember that experience for a lifetime. And now with Mr. Park, Mr. Stoltz, and Mr. Cornett, they inspire both of our girls to excel in school. You can't put a price on the impact that fine arts has on our children. What is most frustrating is the community never had a chance to have a say. There was just an election. There could have been a referendum asking homeowners if they'd be willing to invest the equivalent of an extra tank of gas to keep these critical programs in place. The surest way to ensure more students drop out and homeschool is to eliminate and cut funding to these fine arts programs. I implore you to rethink these budget cuts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Vermont. Mrs. Tanya Jackson.
Good evening. I am here today to discuss the process of referring a student to the alternative education program. I found that during the process, myself and my student was not given due process through the process. We were also met as parents with misinformation, bias, and intimidation in the appeals process. And as I did some research on this issue as it may be in the United States, I found that CCISD seems to be functioning in a school-to-jail pipeline-type program, reported by U.S. News, NAACP, ACLU, and others. Research shows that Hispanic and African Americans are disproportionately referred, your most vulnerable population. Students placed in DAP usually fall behind in their education because the educational level that they are accustomed to is not provided. What I feel needs to change the program should only be for students who have committed criminal offenses. There needs to be ways that have been proven to deal with disciplinary issues. One, management skills of the teachers, mediation, in school or out of school suspension. These methods need to be tried first. In my experience, that does not happen in my case. And stop overrepresentation of minorities with early warning triggers for holding schools accountable for excessive referrals. Require staff and teachers to have the same credentials of those in regular schools so that the children receive the regular education. Hold AEP to some performance and accountability standards and requirements as regular schools. Monitor local school utilization of referring students to AEP so that you can track the problem and you can see where it lies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next we have Mrs. Jackie Rasco.
Good evening. My name is Jackie Rasco. I have been talking about this matter for months now with no response from the board. Why is there no vetting process for teachers' personal libraries? Just a reminder to the audience, there are completely inappropriate books in teachers' classes, I know for sure at Ed White. Books containing politically motivated and sensitive subjects should not be introduced by teachers in the classroom without parents' knowledge and consent. I don't believe picture books that include LGBTQ storylines, focus on gender dysphoria or gender identity have any place in an elementary classroom. These are sexually grooming materials. The are the ultimate and highest decision makers regarding the education of our children. We do not give up our rights in order to get a free public education. I'm asking Dr. Williams to please personally contact me about this. Mr. Paulson has my number. Secondly, I'd like to state that I'm running for Seabrook City Council. On May 7th, I had more votes than my two opponents, but I didn't get 50% majority. So now there's a runoff. If I would have had 12 more votes, I wouldn't be in a runoff. My point is every vote matters. Every vote should be counted. When I asked Seabrook City Secretary if there were any rejected mail-in ballots, she said no. However, there were 7 mail-in ballots she received in a different color envelope than what she had sent out. She sent out yellow envelopes. The ones she received back were maroon and white. This was astonishing to her. After she talked to the Secretary of State, she opened them, and guess what? They were for the school board, with outer envelopes addressed to Seabrook City Hall, typed addresses. How in the world do school board ballots get return enveloped to Seabrook City Hall? The city of Seabrook does not have school board ballots. Wrap your head around that for a second. After running for a position myself, I see how important transparency is and how important it is for every vote to be counted. 395 mail-in ballots for CCISD weren't even looked at until election night. With no time for canvassing, you conveniently rejected these at the 11th hour. Mail-in ballots are for people who cannot come in. Once you got some pushback, you decided to give the mail-in voters 2 days to physically come in to cast their vote. That was completely unrealistic. CCISD did not make a true effort because only 14 voters out of that almost 400 came out. District 1 had a 40-vote difference, an extremely close election. Don't you think that 381 votes should have had a chance to be counted? What about the ballots at City Hall? Well, I heard the district sent out wrong ballots to different districts. A poll watcher was denied entry to mail ballot counting. What else went wrong? You were too swamped, couldn't find election workers. You should be ashamed at how this election was run. How can you call this election final with these kind of discrepancies? It was more like a scrambling mess. After all these mistakes have come to light, you should be offering a recount, including the canvassing of the mail-in ballots. If you need election people, I'd be happy to do that. I want you guys to remember we are the people, and we are watching, and our votes matter. So this wasn't run right, and everyone is aware.
Thank you, Ms. Rasco. Next, we have Mr. John Covarrubias, followed by Janice Lisek.
Thank you. Congratulations, Ms. Suchka. And thanks for Mr. Nunn Garcia for running. It is very difficult to run in an election where there's a tremendous amount of money against you. And I know how hard that is. For Ms. Setska and Nunn and Garcia, it seemed like they raised about the amount of money that I would expect for a campaign like this. Ms. Dawson self-financed for over $20,000 in a personal loan. Mr. Bowen spent $15,000, another $20,000 for a personal loan, and then another mailer from the Harris County Republican Party for an unknown amount of money. It is estimated somewhere near $50,000 for that in total race, and unfortunately couldn't get over 50% of the vote. So full details on all this spending will come around mid-July, and so when you look at this, you could only say that this is obscene. This is an obscene amount of money. Here in Texas, we have no limits on state-run elections. Our state representative, he gave himself $2.5 million. And ran a campaign that should have cost only $400,000 if it was competitive. It was never competitive, never. Ms. Wall spent $13 million 2 times on trying to win a congressional seat. Tony Busby spent $12 million of his own money trying to become mayor. Good qualified candidates cannot compete with this kind of money in a small race like this, like CCISD. So what can you do about this? The state, as I said, state has no limits, but the city of Houston does. They have a $5,000 limit for every candidate, for every individual giving to a candidate. They also have limits on PAC money. They also have limits on when you can actually donate. So maybe CCISD should consider campaign finance reform. Limit contributions to people within your district only. Also, limit the amount of money that you can loan yourself or that anybody can loan you. And also just limit the amount of donations. I mean, these races should be attracting people who are going to support our teachers, students, and parents, and not be going to supporting their political party. And this is what is happening. When you limit the amount of money that comes, and it has to come from the district, you will eliminate that outside partisan influence. And that is what we need to do here and continue to do here in CCISD. This is not an easy task. I mean, this has a lot of legal stuff to do this, and unless we stop this obscene amount of money, you're going to have that infiltration from partisan groups into our district, and they're going to be worried more about their party and not about the parents. Thank you.
Ms. Lesick, followed by Nola Rupert.
Hello, my name is Dr. Janice Richardson-Lesack. I want to make it clear that I'm not accusing CCISD of any intentional wrongdoings or have acted with malice. I'm simply concerned by certain aspects of the election. After the questions raised during last year's school board election and the money the district had to spend defending itself, it was important this year's election to be beyond reproach in their handling of the election. You should have easily predicted that this election would be highly scrutinized, which is a good thing. We want to engage citizens examining elections to ensure fairness and transparency. And the district should have been on high alert that optics would matter more than ever. Nobody wanted a replay of last year. Not the board, not the citizens, yet here we are. In an email from Jay Cunningham to Eric Williams after the election, Jay wrote to Williams, "We knew what was going to happen if the election didn't go a certain way. I anticipate a replay of last year." I find it troubling that 6 out of the 7 ballot board members are district employees. I have no doubt they're all good people, but it's easy to see how this could be perceived as the fox guarding the henhouse. Paul McLarty told the board it was too hard to find members of the community willing to work these elections, that nobody in the community wanted to do this, that it's a long 18-hour day. So in his words, tapped employees on the shoulder to fill these jobs. These were paid positions. I know personally many people in the community who would have been willing to do this. Also, giving these 18 hours to paid employees could be perceived as rewarding them. A public information request has been filed to the district for any communication to the public regarding these election job postings, and CCISD has yet to respond. Moving on, I'd like to know why mail-in ballots were not reviewed for validity until Election Day. I know by law you are allowed to wait till Election Day to review mail-ins and accept or reject them. However, the Secretary of State strongly urges to accept or reject ballots as they come in. Why? Because if a ballot is rejected, it would give ample time to contact voters and would give voters ample time to cure their ballots, and it even allow the district to send out new ballots. But because the district sat on mail-ins until Election Day, it wasn't until then they realized they had rejected 395 ballots for various reasons. When Scott Bowen asked the question of Paul, he defended the handling of the mail-in ballots on Election Day, saying the law allows it. Just because something can be done on a technicality doesn't mean it should be done. Per Paul, they only contacted those they had information on hand, and as per the spreadsheet provided by the district, less than half of the voters were contacted via email. And if you're anything like me, you sometimes don't check your email daily. In a video of Paul addressing the board, 2 times he said, "We were too swamped." Shooting an email to less than half the rejected voters does not satisfy the district's requirement. The handling of ballots fell far short of meeting bare standards. Elections deserve full-time attention. Furthermore, you want us to trust you in handling a district of 40,000 students, but it's apparent you can't handle an election of 4,000 ballots. It's clear the district is in over your head.
next we have Nola Ruprecht. Did I pronounce that right? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Nola Ruprecht. I have two daughters that attend Seabrook Intermediate School. On Friday, May 20th, while I was providing anesthesia services at Clear Lake Hospital, my oldest daughter texted me at 1:34 p.m. saying that there was going to be a shooting at her school. She texted me during a test, which she has never done before. I asked her if this was a drill. She said no. I asked her if the school was on lockdown. She said no. She begged me to come pick her up. She told me that she saw over 20 parents at the school picking up their kids, and that she was scared. She told me that there were multiple shooters involved. This didn't make any sense to me. How could the school not be on lockdown? How could the school allow parents to come onto campus and place their lives in danger as well? How in the world could this not be a drill? But I chose to trust my daughter and believe her because this was not like her at all. My biggest question was, where was the communication from the school? I called the school several times, but nobody answered. Nobody returned my calls. I checked my CCISD text alerts, nothing. I checked my email, nothing. I decided to call the Seabrook Police Station. I was told that there was a suspect in custody and that everything was under control. I asked about the concern of multiple people being involved in this threat. I was told they could not release this information, but I could try calling the Galveston Police Department. By this time, I was already driving for my work to emergently pick up my two daughters. It was 1:50, and the shooting was supposed to occur at 2:40. I still had not heard anything from the school. I arrived on campus and saw a line of parents wrapped around the school, anxiously waiting to pick up their children. I waited in line for about 20 minutes. Parents were wondering why the school was not expediting the checkout process. I noticed that police were present at the school. When I got home with my children, I noticed there was an email from the school at 2:01 with the subject line, "Keeping you informed." I most certainly did not feel informed, and I questioned whether or not the school followed a credible shooter threat policy. I hope my story highlights why the children were so scared and why the parents were so scared, and the complete lack of communication from the school. Many parents, including myself, would like to know why CCISD text alert communications were not utilized. Many of us parents feel this could have greatly reduced the mass panic that occurred this past Friday. Can the board please explain why this event was not escalated to text communication? I would like to ask that we have a future meeting to allow discussion and potential changes to the parent notification policy. I would also like to discuss and help develop a rapid student checkout process for any event in which large volumes of parents wish to take their child off school grounds for any reason. Finally, can the school please educate the children on the anonymous reporting website? Have this as part of the curriculum during the year and associate it with lockdown and disaster training. Most parents and children did not know how to report this event. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Mrs. Megan Ermshar.
Hello, my name is Megan Ermshar, and I'm about to finish my freshman year at Clear Creek High School, where I'm a part of their choir. For a while now, I've been concerned about the proposed budget cuts being made to our program. The choir is not only an award-winning program throughout the region and the state of Texas, but a lifeline to students in CCISD. At Clear Creek High School alone, we have approximately 150 choir students, with one full-time director and one assistant director. They do an outstanding job, but to say that it's a heavy load is an understatement. In contrast, my brother, who I support and am very proud of, is an athlete at Clear Creek High School. He's in a program with approximately 160 students and multiple coaches and trainers. I by no means am putting one program above another, but I do question the extreme differences in funding given the proportion of students enrolled. My brother and I were both able to achieve letterman status this year, which is a compliment to our incredible coaches and directors. I am confident that without them, my skill and talent would not be as developed. I am here as a voice for all fine arts students. That said, the merits of Clear Creek Choir cannot be discounted. We have been privileged enough to have a full-time assistant director since 1973. Highlights of that include Clear Creek Choir has an average of 4 all-state choir members for 47 years. To put this in perspective, most high school choirs hope for 1 all-state member. Clear Creek High School holds the record for the most first-year students in 1 year at the all-state choir. Clear Creek High School Choir also has a total of 140 sweepstakes trophies from UIL. That equates to an average of almost 3 per year for 50 years. To say that Clear Creek Choir is one of the best choir programs in the state of Texas is not an understatement. This would not be achievable without the gifts of an incredible director and full-time assistant director. Is this a jewel of CCISD programs that is really worth eliminating when we consistently provide state recognition for the district? The Clear Creek High School Choir has had a theme for over 50 years of No One Stands Alone. This choir not only develops an incredible talent, but also gives us a place to belong without it, and our wonderful directors being able to work with us full-time. Hundreds of students are at risk for being lost to the budget and political system. I leave you here tonight asking this: is it really worth it? Thank you.
Next, we have Haley Bermont, followed by Katie French, followed by Kathy Burrell.
My name is Haley Vermont, and I'm a sophomore at Clear Creek High School. I'm here today to fight the cuts that are being made to the funding of the fine arts programs in the district. I've been involved in choir since the 4th grade, and I recently made the all-state mixed choir. And choir has held a dear place in my heart ever since I started. As a student, this program is what makes me want to come to school every day. Choir is such a welcoming environment that makes everybody feel at home, and that's all thanks to our directors, Mr. Park and Mr. Stoltz. Not only is choir a melting pot at our school, but we are known for our 50-plus years of traditions and our message, where no one stands alone. It's our motto, and it's proven true every single day. We also have an immense presence in the community. Just 2 weeks ago, our chamber choir performed at Gloria Dei Church with the Bay Area Chorus under the direction of our very own Milton Pullen. Mr. Pullen is known as the father of our choir program, and to get him to direct our choir once more was a very big deal. This was all thanks to the effort that Mr. Park and Mr. Stoltz put into coordinating community events like this. If we lose our full-time assistant director, we lose the ability to successfully plan out these extensive community events. Chamber choir was active in the community during school hours, and that required one of our directors to be present with them. Without 2 full-time directors, when our head director is out doing things in the community next year, the rest of the classes will be in need of a substitute, and from what I've heard from my other teachers, substitutes are in high demand these days, so it's not going to be cheap to have to pay for a sub in a situation that could otherwise be prevented. I put as much effort into choir as any athlete would put into their sport, so why is it that only the fine arts programs are getting cuts? This is not just about the students in choir or at Clear Creek High School. This is about any student invested in any fine arts program. I sincerely hope that you will reconsider this decision. It is not only affecting us at the high school level, but also in the middle schools, and these cuts are going to have repercussions for years to come. Thank you for your consideration.
Next, we have Miss Katie French. Oh, okay. I hope everything's okay. Mrs. Kathy Burrell.
Good afternoon, board and committee members and everybody else that's here. On Friday, April 22nd, standing near the parent pickup location, reviewing our meeting with Dr. Garding and AP Rodriguez at Brookside Intermediate, an elderly Caucasian female called me to her vehicle stating, "I hope you get good results, as these people don't know what they're doing at this school. We just went through the ringer for our grandson." I thanked the lady, and now weeks later, I understand why the conversation. Many others from all spectrums of life have been affected by biased and inappropriate discipline of students and of their behavior. As a 30-year taxpayer of this district, where are the Summerfords and Bossmans who once led schools with excellence on a quest for the best? As a former employee of the district, I witnessed an AP encouraged to retire from CCISD, as one of the pieces of evidence used against him was improper discipline and a discipline referral form that was not completely filled out. Now, here we have a student who was accused of an assault based on hearsay, with an AP serving as the district attorney, the jury, and the judge, sentencing the student to DAEP for a minimum of 30 days, when in fact no assault ever occurred. The discipline referral was never seen nor signed by a parent, student, nor did the parents or the student have the opportunity to meet with all parties involved in the alleged assault. Then midstream serving the sentence, the matter is changed to a different violation, yet without proper hearing. After reviewing of the facts myself, I question, where is the discipline sanction for a teacher who forcibly yanks a student from behind on his backpack straps, then walks behind him, taunting him until the student, out of despair, succumbs to the provoking? Scripture instructs us, fathers, which could be those in authority, do not provoke your child to wrath. Then another teacher on assumption, puts his hand on the student. Where is that teacher's discipline? Yet the student itself has been sent to DAEP. Yet the honor student, with ease and essence in conduct throughout elementary and middle school, perhaps a growing pain for discipline issues, has sent to jail. Second, does that sound familiar with our current judicial system? And lastly, where is listening to the student and parents to see what is really going on for the administration to become district attorney, jury, and judge? I go back to that conversation with that grandmother picking up her grandson, and I think, where have we gone? What are we doing here? We have to do better than this Clear Creek Independent School District to our students, particularly our black males.
And I wanted to thank our speakers tonight, and especially our students that got up and addressed the board. It's never easy to get up in front of the community, to get up in front of your peers, things of that nature. So thank you for comment tonight. And next, I'll turn it over to Dr. Williams for our district update.
Thank you. First, I want to thank each of our public speakers for coming to address the board this evening regarding a variety of important matters. So, as we all know, in just a few short days, school will be out for the summer. This has been an exceptional year, despite the challenges associated with the pandemic. We're thankful for our parents and community partners who continue to support our schools in many meaningful ways. We had the opportunity recently to recognize some of the partners during our annual partnership breakfast. So I'll share that the City of League City was honored as our partner of the year for their help in major bond projects and for providing multiple opportunities for our students to contribute to the community. We also recognize Bob Mitchell, who is the outgoing president of the Bay Area Houston Economic Partnership, and our volunteers of the year were named. We want to congratulate Melissa Page, who's really is a superhero at Weber Elementary. Also, Chris Ogston with Mary Queen Catholic Church was recognized for her efforts at Clearbrook High School. And the following schools were recognized for having the highest PTA membership in the district: Falcon Pass Elementary, Seabrook Intermediate, and Clear Lake High School. I also want to thank our entire CCISD team for their dedication to help, in terms of our mission to help students achieve, contribute, and lead with integrity. And earlier this month, we recognized more than 100 employees who announced their retirement this year. And one of those employees is Paul McClarty, Deputy Superintendent of Business and Support Services. I'd like to ask Mr. McClarty to stand for a moment. He's served Clear Creek ISD for 19 years. His leadership will be deeply missed. I will say we will still see Mr. McClarty around. He's taken on the city manager position for the city of Nassau Bay. We have two outstanding educators who will be representing Clear Creek ISD in the regional selection of the Elementary Teacher of the Year and the Secondary Teacher of the Year. Congratulations to Heidi Danner of Bauerschlag Elementary and Carmen Lingo of Clear Creek Intermediate. These teachers and all teachers, campus teachers of the year, were honored during a special luncheon hosted by the area Rotary Clubs. Check out this short video about them.
What is this?
A poster.
Miss Danner is the kind of teacher that you want every student in the building to have. She loves kids. She has a clarity of purpose so that she knows exactly what her intentions are for the learning and also for the growth of the students socially and emotionally.
She has built such a community in her classroom. Every child in there feels seen and heard every single day, and they feel safe to take risks.
Her classroom is a very engaging place. Children collaborate with each other. They work hard on projects, take it to the level that they can take it to. But the way that she works her classroom, they're always engaged and they're always talk nice to each other. And they collaborate and then they work well with each other.
I think Miss Danner is one of the best teachers I've ever worked with. She is thoughtful and reflective. She is the type of teacher that I want my child to have because she loves them and she wants them to be successful.
You're correct.
Mr. Lingo is a professional, dedicated, respected teacher at Clear Creek Intermediate. He goes over and beyond each and every day. Mr. Lingo is positive and he builds relationships with staff and with students.
They're in great hands. Mr. Lingo does an excellent job reaching out to his students and building rapport. They feel comfortable and safe in his classroom. He does everything he can to help them learn the curriculum, both math and or science, and then working through that relationship piece so that those kids know that they have someone and an ally on campus.
Because he's authentic. What you see is what you get. And what you're getting is a master teacher who cares about his students, who cares about their success, and who cares about offering them experiences that are going to take them into the future.
So the glimpses into those classrooms reflect the fact that it has been a great school year, and I've enjoyed visiting classrooms and talking to students about what they're learning. And I want to share with you a brief conversation with Lauren, that I had, and she's a student in Miss Beach's 5th grade class at Bauerschlag Elementary. And for context, I'll note that students' use of precise mathematical language relates directly to the clarity of their understanding of important math concepts and skills. And so in order to help students understand significant math ideas and processes, our teachers encourage students to use precise mathematical language and to communicate mathematical ideas using multiple representations. And as you'll see in a moment, Lauren recently showed me symbols and diagrams and precisely referred to math concepts that she had depicted. It was exciting to listen to her because it illustrated the great work our teachers are doing to engage students in displaying, explaining, and justifying mathematical ideas and arguments using mathematical language. Listen to her and check out what she has created.
Here we're looking at our representations of place value, order of operation, primary composite, and multiplying and dividing decimals. And we have dividing fractions, a basic algorithm, and multiplying fractions. So we have a representation of every single one to basically explain it all.
So just really precise language reflecting the great work of our teachers. So I'll conclude my district update by noting that, of course, we are in graduation season. We started graduations last Friday with Clear Horizons Early College High School. We also had a small graduation ceremony for the senior players of the Clear Creek High School baseball team. The Creek's big graduation was Friday evening, and it coincided with the regional quarterfinals playoff game for Creek. So Mr. Majewski and team put together a special graduation ceremony for players on Friday morning. We'll finish graduations tomorrow and Wednesday evening, and then in case anyone doesn't know, although I don't think that's the case, the last day of school in Clear Creek is this Thursday. And that concludes the district update this evening.
Thank you for that update, Dr. Williams. And we will move on. Well, I will let. And thank you for that update, Dr. Williams. We will move on to item 13, our actions on closed session items. And do I have a motion for item A?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Sanchez.
I move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation for intermediate principal of Miss Erin Schmidt.
Thank you for that motion, Mr. Sanchez. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Cottrell. Seeing no comment, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And that motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item B.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Bowen.
I move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation of Alice Benzaya for Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you for that motion, Mr. Bowen. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Seeing no comment, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And that motion carries unanimously. And we will move on to item C. Do I have a motion?
I would like to move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for Paul Miller as Assistant Superintendent for Support Services.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Cottrell. And seeing no comment, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And that motion carries unanimously. We will move on to, well, before we move on, I'm gonna hand it over to Dr. Williams.
So we appreciate the board's approval of these three recommendations. Ms. Erin Schmidt will be serving as principal of Creekside Intermediate. Most recently, she served as assistant principal at Clear Springs High School. She was transferred there a few months ago, but prior to that, she had served as assistant principal at Creekside for more than 4.5 years. And she's a very strong instructional leader, and we're pleased about her returning to Creekside Intermediate this coming school year. We're also pleased that Alice Benzai will be serving as Chief Financial Officer. She currently serves as the Controller for Clear Creek ISD and served previously as Director of Business Services and Financial Planning. She holds an MBA and a CPA, and she's demonstrated a thorough knowledge of our district, and we're pleased that she'll be serving this position. We'd like to ask that she stand and be welcomed. We are also thrilled that Mr. Paul Miller will be serving as Assistant Superintendent for Support Services. He has served as Director of Facility Services for the past 11 years and has done an exceptional job in that position. Previously, he served as District Operations Finance Manager, and he clearly has a thorough knowledge of finance, operations, and CCISD. So we're also pleased that he'll be serving in this position and ask that he be stand and be welcomed as well.
Big shoes to fill and not clown shoes, right? All right. Thank you for that update, Dr. Williams. And we'll move on to our last action item in closed session, which is item D.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Cottrell.
I move that the board adopt the level 4 hearing officer's recommendation.
Thank you for that motion, Mr. Cottrell. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Sanchez, for that second. And seeing no comment, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And one abstaining. All right. So that motion carries 6 with 1 abstaining. Next, we'll move on to our action items on consent agenda items. Would anyone like to pull anything? Everybody good? If nobody wants to pull anything, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. President,
Mr. Sanchez?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you for that motion, Mr. Sanchez. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Seeing no comment, I will call for a vote. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda as presented, please raise your right hand. And that carries unanimously. And next, we will move on to item B. Consider approval of the 2022-2023 CCISD health insurance premium contributions. How are you doing, Ms. Smith?
Good evening. I am excited to bring good news about the insurance premiums for the 22-23 school year. Earlier this month, the Texas Teacher Retirement System met and advised on what they would be doing with our healthcare premiums for the state of Texas. This year is the first year TRS moved to a regional rating instead of a statewide rating, so that is reflected in your Education Service Center region. We are in Region 4, so that would be reflected of all the counties along the Gulf Coast. The good news is that premiums will ultimately be going down for our employees. We propose to keep CCISD contribution the same and let the employees benefit from the reduction. We have 4 different plans. 3 of the 4 will receive around a 5.5% reduction in their premiums. The 4th plan has been closed to new participants as of 2018. TRS is aiming to phase out this program, so those premiums were kept flat. So this is very good news. We have approximately 3,200 employees who accept our insurance, and they will all see some sort of reduction.
That is fantastic news. And Mrs. Smith, I just wanted to ask one question. Could you kind of break down what that means?
Sure. So the majority of our employees are on our high deductible plan. These premiums, as of for the employee, can range anywhere from $88 for employee only up to $961 as a premium. So for the employee only, they will see a $22 a month reduction in their premium. For a family premium, they will see a $75 reduction. And that premium is very similar for the remaining plans. As I said, active care will not see a change in their premium.
Fantastic. And I will open it up to any questions. If there's no question or comment, I have a comment.
I did just want to make sure we also mentioned, we believe this is just for this next year, is that right?
Correct. I'm sorry, I failed to mention that. So this reduction is because of a COVID funding relief that Governor Abbott allocated. It was $435 million that was allocated statewide. We do not anticipate this will happen every year, but we are certainly grateful for this year. As you know, historically, rates increase anywhere from 8 to 10%. So this is very good news, and we are excited to see what this regional rating will mean for us in the future. We have to make a decision by December 31st to whether we will stay with TRS or if we will leave TRS, and we will be committing to leave for 5 years. So it's definitely up in the air and something that we will
analyze going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Ms. Sanchez. Seeing no further comment, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Bowen.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation to maintain the district's health insurance premium contributions to TRS Active Care unchanged, where employee-only coverage remains at $324 per month, employee and spouse remains at $384 per month, employee and children remains at $359 per month, and family coverage remains at $409 per month.
Thank you for that
I'd like
motion,
to
Mr.
second
Bowen.
that.
And thank you, Mr. Larson. Seeing no further comment, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And that motion carries unanimously. And we will move on to item C, consider approval of additional instructional planning calendar days.
As Ms. Hughes and Dr. Silver are setting up, I'll just make some brief introductory comments as a follow-up to the conversation with the board at its workshop recently. We're bringing to you consideration of a revision to the school calendar for next year. The new revised version includes 4 additional student holidays throughout the school year, the removal of all high school late arrival days, and a decrease in early release days. And as we shared at the workshop most recently, we have had accelerated focus on teacher retention and supporting teachers, recognizing that there have been really tough demands on teachers through the years, but that really have accelerated in recent years and literally recent months with the challenges that teachers face. And the number one challenge that teachers reference is time, and so this is intended to provide additional planning time for teachers because they have very limited planning time built in the school day, and it would involve time for both to collaborate with colleagues, but also just to work independently. And we know that this work is just one piece of the puzzle, that there's other important aspects that we need to continue to focus on. And so that highlights some of the information you'll hear in a moment, but I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Hughes and Dr. Silva.
Thank you so much. It's a great opportunity to share with you again information that we've previously discussed. But once again, just to highlight the amazing work of our teachers and how important it is that we continue to provide the best in our classrooms for our students. We cited last time that, once again, Clear Creek ISD is noted as the top workplace in Houston, according to the Chronicle, and we know that it's important that we recruit the very best to continue in these classrooms. We're thankful for the opportunity to support our teachers and to provide this teacher sprint team, and it is sprint. It was short to start with, but it will continue on, as Dr. Williams noted. And we're thankful for this committee coming together. As you can see, it consists of parents, teachers, and different representatives from across the district. We looked at our data and have seen a much higher percentage of absenteeism in our classrooms this year outside, certainly due to COVID, but outside of that as well. And that has been a factor that we've been focused on addressing. We've heard it tonight in different ways and different comments made, but the importance of a teacher in a classroom was our goal and our aspect of work. As we pulled this team together, we looked at prioritizing our goals and looking at the trends across in many different formats. But we know that teachers are the most important school-based factor affecting student outcomes. As far as having a great teacher in the classroom each day, it is has such an impact on learning and on why our students come to school. If we believe that in our teachers, we want to believe in their work and we want to respect them with this work. Our goal was to develop recommendations to bring to you tonight and also continue the work as we go through the next year. As we went through our work, 3 themes emerged. Certainly time, initiatives, and culture. We did talk about this last time at the board workshop, but just a reminder, and certainly Dr. Williams alluded to this as well, but time is of the essence of coming to you tonight this evening. As far as initiatives, initiatives emerged, and we'll share a little bit about that, but we have high expectations in Clear Creek ISD. Clearly by tonight's recognitions, we have amazing students, we have amazing teachers, and we want to accomplish all the amazing things. And we have a lot at work in Clear Creek ISD. So that was a focus of how much, how clear, and within what time are we going to accomplish those things. And then finally, culture. There are just some things to look at as far as our culture and how we're supporting those to push forward. And so really our effort tonight and thinking about time, our team looked at many different options in considering time. We looked at all the opportunities to provide teachers more time to plan and to work together. Some of those options considered looking at our early release days, looking at our professional learning days that we have on the calendar, and trying to find protected days for the professional learning community work that we've brought forward to you and that you've heard about and with such success this year and high regard from our teachers, administrators, and even down to the student level. If we want teachers to have time to personalize lessons and to provide that engaging instruction, we need to provide time dedicated for them to do so and to plan for it. There's much to be done on this pre-K through 12. It was a focus across all the conversations and certainly our teacher focus groups in which they're asking for time to plan and plan well for student learning. Ooh, let's see, and let's keep going. There we go. So we also talked about initiatives. I'm going to catch right there. Initiatives. We talked about initiatives with time-bound work and with time-bound signpost as far as when the beginning and ending and the expectations for output are for those initiatives as being an important factor, as well as professional learning dedicated to those initiatives, to be clear and to have a consistent message district-wide. I think across the board this year, as we end up this last week of school, we are, I know, quite experienced with graduations and the celebrations that we have at the end of the year. We're also looking to next year. And across the board, if you talk to a teacher in a classroom, they're looking not only for time, but they're looking for consistency, they're looking for clarity, and they're looking for that clear direction moving forward to next year as we rethink and retool as our efforts as we go forward. Initiative fatigue is something that was mentioned, and so they're looking for that clarity, that clarifying initiatives and expectations. So as we move forward and looking at our recommendations, we are recommending and I would ask for you to take a look at the 4 dates that are noted there and also in the calendar that has been shared with you previously, as far as creating those for new instructional planning days to add to the school calendar in order to give that systemic support for teachers to actually plan in their classroom, as well as to dedicate some time to these initiatives as well. Secondly, we will continue to work on clarifying those expectations for professional learning. They're going to be noted as instructional planning days on the calendar. And also, additionally, we will be working this summer as going on and into the fall about creating messaging and clarifying initiatives and expectations. And we talked about this as well, but I can't help but bring it up again. We did also talk about the releasing campus staff right before those breaks before the holidays. We did this past year, and it was such a huge win and such a welcome break for our teachers and staff members on the campus level to have those early release days before the breaks that they were most appreciated. So without, I guess, and also conversations about time. So as we go forward, this is the draft calendar. I have copies for you if you want to see that again, but I also provided it for you previously. But overall, our recommendation is to support our teachers and to support great learning in the classroom so they can prepare outstanding lessons and instruction for our students to continue to thrive. And with that, I will, unless Dr. Silva, anything else? Are there any questions? Dr. Silva is our resident expert on time and calendar, so she's definitely here as support for this.
Well, before we open it up to question or comment, I wanted to thank you both for the heavy lifting you guys are doing during graduation, so thank you. I call you guys the dynamic duo. And with that, I'll open it up to question or comment.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment here. I think the most serious problem facing our school district is our financial cliff that we look to fall off in a few years due to the transition funding. The second most pressing problem is that we're losing teachers. This is a statewide problem. It's a serious, serious threat to the quality of education in the district. We are blessed in that we are hit maybe a little less hard than some of the other districts are, simply because of our reputation as a great place to work and a great place to learn. But that's not enough. We're losing too many teachers from the profession, people who are just leaving the profession completely, and we need to be smart about how we can create a work environment that will encourage them to remain and grow along with our students. This is not something that just flew in from 70,000 feet. This is something that was put together with the help of our teachers. We got this straight from the horse's mouth. We know this is what they need and what they want. Now, I've also heard from parents who are distraught that we're losing early release dates, and I sympathize with them, but I think that's a separate problem, and I don't think we're going to solve that problem by not giving our teachers time to plan. So for that reason, I would just like to express my support for all the recommendations in this plan and urge my fellow board members to vote for it.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Mr. Bolton?
I do have a couple of questions. My first question is that obviously this change will impact teachers in terms of their free time, but for paraprofessionals and hourly employees, they will be losing, am I correct in saying that they would be losing 4 days of pay due to this plan?
So we are very much focused on that issue and looking at a variety of options. We're looking at professional development for staff members. We would not want busy work, but we're looking at options for professional development for them on those days. So that's very much still front and center in terms of that we're looking at those final details.
And to support that, Dr. Williams, that did come up in our discussions to some degree as well, since we have been remiss in having professional learning for our business support services and all of our instructional support services in the past few years. This is an ideal time for us to capitalize on that and use that time well.
Okay, thanks. The second question I had was, how are we going to be tracking to make sure this time is actually being used for what we intend for it to be? Because, I mean, more free time that is created is, if past trends continue, is just going to be eaten up by the same things that are already eating up all of the other free time. So how do we make sure that this time actually is protected from, I guess, training and the encroaching demands on teacher time?
That is a true problem, and I don't know that it's isolated to education and nor to our work, but competing priorities, it's a factor. We have created a draft plan to delineate the time to be consistent, as we discussed, consistency and clarity across the board, so that we can have that bi-level, elementary, intermediate, and high school, to have structured time, to have that committed time. I think there'll be some internal and external accountability to that we have to build in. Part of this is going to surround that clear and compelling messages, like our teachers need to be on campus those days planning. This is their time to utilize well to move forward. We want to make that very clear and compelling for them to do so. But we also know that we need to be clear about the time in which they have time to plan. And so we've definitely developed initial plans on that, and we'll continue to push that out.
And I'd like to echo several key points that Ms. Hughes made. And this relates to the fact that different teachers have different perspectives on how those 4 days would be used. Some teachers say, hey, we really want more time to spend with our professional learning communities, whether that be a grade level team or a group of content area teachers. They say that we find that time to be valuable, but we don't have enough of that time on a normal school day. Other teachers say, hey, I just need time to work independently. Yes, I value working with my colleagues. Yes, I value various professional learning opportunities, but I want an opportunity to take what I'm working on with colleagues or what I'm learning on with colleagues and just time to work independently. So as Ms. Hughes was saying, we will have consistent expectations across schools that provides a combination of time for people to work with colleagues and time just to work independently.
Thanks.
Is there any other question or comment?
I have a question. So
David.
we exchanged some late arrival days for full days for the teachers to have for planning purposes. How did we modify, can you please remind me how we modified the time so that we know that the students are getting the full instruction required in a year?
Absolutely. Sure. So we did trade out some of the late arrivals. The teachers really felt like to get that bigger chunk of time was most valuable. But essentially, you may remember in March on the consent, we had a waiver for TEA, which was for a professional development, 2,100 minutes. And so through that waiver, which we applied for after approved by the board in March, so early April, we were granted that waiver. So that gave us those minutes to be a little more flexible, have more minutes to be flexible with. So we always like to have some built-in extra minutes for weather days and different cancellations that we occasionally have to do, as you know. And so we still have a little of those built in case we need them next year. We do have weather days designated on the calendar, but nobody really likes to use those because those are holidays. And so we looked at the past, several years, and we've never needed more than a few, and we have that sort of built in with those. So the change from the late arrival was really in response to the teacher's request for that longer chunk of time.
Okay. I know that we have gotten some feedback from some parents, and I think the only pause that I give, because this is for our teachers, we want to make sure that they've got the time they need to do this. But I remember the voting process for the previous calendars was pretty intense and pretty focused. And we're pretty sure all the teachers are happy with this?
Yeah,
The majority of
yes,
them?
Yes.
I mean,
I think all the teachers that we have shared this with, we've gotten a very positive response because it is meeting one of their biggest needs, which is more time to work collaboratively and independently, like Dr. Williams said. So I think the idea of having just about once a month for them to use that, which is what the IP days will be, other than December, which is a little bit of a crazy month in May, which is very challenging for any, due to testing, will meet their needs. That was by far the biggest request. From The two factors that we've heard repeatedly from teachers, pre-K-12, that they're okay with stepping away from the half days, the early release. I think they're welcoming to try something different, and they're enthusiastically embracing the additional time.
And I guess my only concern is that we didn't do a survey or anything to find out, do 97% of the teachers support this, or is it only 38%? That's my only concern of, the one parent mentioning that it's being rushed through. But again, we need to do something for the teachers, but I just want to make sure I'm not approving something and 67% are going to come and say, we didn't want that. And as far as the paras go, having worked on a campus, I can tell you it's not just busy work when they're there and no students are there and no teachers are there. They have plenty to do. They could use getting caught up in that time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Just to kind of piggyback off that, the dates, how did we come up with those particular dates?
There's a, oh, go ahead. There's a lot that goes, I don't, even going out for a vote, there's so many factors that go into looking at the dates, from testing to assessments. When you look pre-K-12 to try and find that time, it is interesting, but we really tried to look also at where we already have different holidays and in-services, and to try to make an intentional move with that time. Choosing Mondays as well was a different step for us as well, but that would pace out that time so they could plan for a short stretch, and that would be on a more of a consistent basis. And so that was part of what went in that, and to try to avoid the assessment window, which there's a lot of assessment to avoid, so we're trying to work within that as well.
So essentially, we did about one every 4 to 6 weeks. Our assessment window really amps up starting April 24th, and so we don't have any after that.
All right, thank you. Any additional comment or question? Mr. Bowen?
I guess I'll ask one more question. And I mean, this is a very basic question. So I was in school when we made the transition from having this sort of format where all training took place in in-service days to the early release days. And now we're going back. So why were the early release days adopted in the first place? And now that we're just going back to the way it was before, in some sense, I mean, do we think early release days were an improvement, or is that kind of a failed experiment?
I don't know if I'd say failed experience, but we do have overwhelming feedback specifically from our secondary campuses that late arrivals, that they are looking to step away from late arrivals and to try this full day, just to get the full content in for both teachers and students on the days that we have, to have that consistency. As far as early releases, certainly trying to give that aspect of a daily connection is an important piece, and that was part of why we looked at the early releases previously. And just trying to keep that a consistent attendance up as well, which will bring us back to talking about attendance next. So that'll be another meeting, but that was part of the factor when we moved to the early releases and the late arrivals specifically.
Thanks.
See no further comment, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. President?
Mr. Sanchez?
Mr. President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the additional instructional planning calendar days as presented.
Thank you for that motion, Mr. Sanchez. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. See no comment, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Silver and Mrs. Hughes. Paul, come on down. One of the last presentations, right?
That's right, it's a 3-hour presentation.
200 slides?
200 slides. No, it is a little lengthy, but I'm going to try to go through it as quickly as possible because I know the hour's late and I'm the only thing keeping you from either snacks or bed. So we'll get through this quickly. But we spent the last year basically on this committee looking at different options for expenditure reductions and revenue enhancements. And I think we've got a great group that worked together. And we were looking towards the budget and planning part of the superintendent's target. And so we were looking for things that would give us a 3 to 5 year financial plan that would help us into the future, making financial decisions that would align with our long-term planning that would not suck down all of the capital and contingency fund. We wanted to limit that to 20%, and then making sure that our multi-year financial plan effectively informs financial decisions that affect our strategic plan. There's the group on the left. It's a good group of people. We had a good membership of campus leaders who offered some really great ideas. Our meeting dates are on the right. So we met a lot. Basically every couple of weeks we would meet. It's hard to see up there, so I got you a copy of this. But the things we're looking at first are potential revenue increases. The district lost over 1,500 students, as we've heard many times during the pandemic. So one of the options we talked about was developing an attendance task force. So Ms. Hughes is already working on that now, and they've already been meeting, and in June, I think they're going to bring forward more information on that. But we believe if we can get our ADA up, simply on the number of students that are here now, we lost the 1,500, but the ADA on the ones that are not here, that are here is terrible this year, and it's terrible across the state, so we're not alone when it comes to that. But we could get back roughly $2.5 million in revenue. Our SHARS and related, school health and related services, SHARS, we found another $3.5 million there that we can receive every year on federal funding for those Medicaid students, eligible students. Increase enrollment in state compensatory education funding. So they changed the way Comp Ed is done now. It's on census blocks, and we've got a lot better information now on our census blocks, and that brought in about $4.7 million in the coming years, every year going forward. Increase in career and technical education funding. So we looked at some of our courses that we currently have that aren't receiving CTE funding, and we said, how can we switch those a little bit so we can maybe get that CTE funding? And the courses will bring in about $1.2 million over the next several years by just some tweaks to those programs. And so we're going to phase that in a little bit next year, and then the following year we'll phase it in even further to get an additional funding offset of about $1.2 million. We've got some surplus district real property that we can put on the block to sell. We don't need it, and there's a lot that we do need, but there's some pieces of that real estate that we don't need. And so Mr. Miller has looked over all those pieces, and we talked about them, and we think that we can sell about 68 acres of land that we currently own that would bring in about close to $14 million. And we can do that over the next few years. It's not something immediate. We would have to go through a process for that. But certainly, we don't think we need to hold on to that land. We do need to buy other pieces of property down the road for future elementary schools in the west side of League City. But these pieces of property we think we can sell, and that could bring in one-time funding. And then we've got excess fund balance in our self-funded internal service funds. There's 3 of them: workers' comp, dental, and short-term disability, that just over the period of years we've developed a fund balance that's more than we really need in those areas. So we can use those funds over the next 3 years just by moving at $500,000 each year for 3 years over to the general fund to help fund some of the deficits that we anticipate. So that'd be about $1.5 million. Then this is a big one. We've really got to work on the legislature this next session. They have money. The state has a lot of money, and we got to make sure that they understand that the school districts need that funding. I know they want to give tax relief, which is, we're all in favor of that, but we also want to make sure we take care of school districts. And I think that's going to be a push from parents. It's going to be a push from chambers of commerce, school boards. Everybody's going to have to jump in and say our schools really need some additional funding going forward. We did get some additional funding as a result of House Bill 3. Mr. Larson pointed out, of course, that the Formula Transition Grant, which is a temporary funding source for us, is going to go away in a couple of years. And so we need to make sure the state understands the financial difficulty this puts school districts in over the next, and it's not just us. There's a bunch of districts in the same boat as we are. So potential revenue increases through the areas we just mentioned could be ongoing revenue of about almost $12 million, and then one-time revenue enhancements of about $15.5 million. So I think we've done a pretty good job of squeezing as much as we can out of our current revenue streams and looking for other opportunities through legislative relief going forward. The other thing this group looked at was expenditure reductions. And in line with the superintendent's target, established a citizens committee citizens and staff to review expenditure reduction strategies. We've talked about that. I know the superintendent has that in his targets for next year. And I think that's going to be a real opportunity for our citizens to weigh in on what do they think is most important as far as expenditure reductions going forward. And we had one of these committees back in, I think, 2011-12 timeframe when we had the huge funding cuts from the state. And they really came up with some really good ideas. So we think that, of course, we don't know what they can come up with, but we think that's a great opportunity to bring in our community as well. Review district and campus administrative staffing. This year, we took a hard look at pupil-teacher ratios, and we did some adjustments across the district in every area that would bring down us to more of a meeting our current enrollment instead of we were overstaffed based on our pre-COVID enrollment, and we never cut that back. So we wanted to make sure we don't just look at teachers, right? We need to look at administration as well, and there's going to be a push for us to look at those numbers. This one is something that comes up every year. We talk about this, and it's usually a small incremental change, but it's calendar options to reduce the FY 22-23 budget. That's not the current calendar that we talked about just a few minutes ago. It's next year's calendar, so it's the one that the district, DEIC, and Dr. Silva will be working on in the fall for next year. If we can just, and this may not be popular, it may not be something that you want to do, but if we can move the start date of school back 5 days, it would bring in about $7.5 million in one-time revenue, and I'm sorry, expenditure reduction, and it would really help us in that next year, the 22-23 school year, this budget we've got coming up. So that's something we would recommend that you look at strongly and consider. Certainly have teacher input and community input like we do with our calendars every year before they're adopted by the board. Match current 22-23 staffing to actual enrollment. That's what we did with our 1,500 student loss. Of course, we tried to match those pupil-teacher ratios up as closely as we could. And of course, there was no layoffs as a result of this, nor would there be in the future under our consideration. So we found about $4.3 million in that by doing that. We have a general, over the years, we just don't spend every penny that we've budgeted, and we get an extra revenue every year. So we generally see a roll forward or some savings from our budget, and we're estimating that to be about $5 million. So you'll see that as we look at our current year and our future year budgets, showing a $5 million estimate of things that we won't spend or revenue that will get in excess of what we budgeted. Reclassing expenditures to ESSER funds for 2 years. This is going to come back to us down the road. So we did have a substantial amount of ESSER funding this year, and we recoded some of our general fund expenditures to our ESSER funds, but it's going to come back in a couple of years. We got a plan for that moving forward of that $9.2 million, but it will help us over the next few years. There are some districts that have used that have multi-million-dollar deficits. I won't mention which ones, but multi-million-dollar deficits that they're using all ESSER funds to cover those completely. So we've been judicious. We haven't used all that funding for this purpose. Consider reductions in overtime. This is a tough one, and we're going to have to stay on top of this all year long. We started after the first of the year to really tighten down on overtime at the campus level, internally. My departments are a big spender of overtime when it comes to transportation or maintenance and things we're having to do, so we got to work with that as well. But certainly, we think we can find about $450,000 in savings this next year for expenditure reductions due to overtime. Just keeping an eye on it closer. We've got a new contract with our SHARS program that's going to change the administrative fee from 5% down to 3%. So just by doing that, we can save a couple $100,000 a year. And Dr. Staley worked on this with her team to bring this forward. Legal liability and benefit adjustments. So we lowered our legal liability insurance with Ms. Armechanic's agreement from $2 million to $1 million. So we found that districts across the state usually are at that $1 million limit. We saved about 67 to 70, I think it's $70,000 a year on just by doing that. And it's not, we've looked at our history, and we've never had a claim even near our $1 million liability limit. So we feel that that's a safe move. And then internal adjustments on district payments on benefit plans. We made a few minor changes there, so we got about 150,000 from that. Consider options to reduce substitute cost. This is going to be a tough one, because this year we not only spent our budget, but we probably spent more than our budget because of all the staff outages and shortages that we had during the year. And so this is an opportunity. I'm not sure that we can get there, but we're certainly want to throw that out as a challenge to our staff to try to minimize that substitute budget in some way. Power factor correction, energy savings. Now, I'm not going to be able to explain this in detail. I've got some good information here, and we've got Paul Miller behind me who's going to jump up if I need it. But generally, the way power companies, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, the way power companies plan their power usage is at 95% of whatever your usage would be when you start everything up at a campus. So say you click on every light, all the HVAC comes on at one time, and that would draw 95% or certain kilowatt hours. But if you go below that amount, which we never turn everything on at once, right? We phase it in, we turn it on at different times. So we rarely hit that 95% number. So if we go below it, we actually get penalized. There's a correction factor that's used on our billing. And so if we can add some equipment, these are capacitors that we add to it's not every building, but it's almost all of them, that will store up the energy where we can go ahead and start up, take the energy and start up on a slower time frame, then we can save about $220,000 a year. It would take an investment of about $750,000 that if the board is in agreement with that, we would come forward with a recommendation down the road to use bond savings and interest to fund that upfront cost for those capacitors. How to do, Paul? Close? Okay. So anyway, we've got a summary of potential expenditure reductions of about $10.7 million in potential ongoing reductions, and potential one-time reductions of about $16.6 million. So I think overall the committee did a really good job of getting down into the weeds to come up with as much as we could during this period of time. It's not by any means done. There's more work that needs to be done, but I think that I'm proud of what we've come up with to this point. Any questions on that before we're going to do a quick budget update as well, but I wanted to stop and see if there was any questions on this part of the presentation. And
Well, first, I was going to open it up to the community since it was a community-wide presentation. If anyone in the community wishes to make a comment about the public presentation, please feel free to do so.
I don't see anybody expressing that. I was just making sure because we didn't post.
Okay. Okay. I thought it was. I'm sorry. And I'll open it up to my fellow trustees. Mr. Larson.
Yeah, just a quick aside. I tried to explain the power. I'm an electrical engineer who used to work for the power company.
I did a terrible job of explaining this.
Well, I tried to explain that to Dr. Williams about a couple hours ago, and I realized this is a subject that is commonly taught second semester of electrical engineering, and it's really easy to teach. The problem is if you don't have that first semester, it's Greek.
It's a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah. So, but the other thing I wanted to observe about the entire presentation is you're down there looking at details. I noticed of as low as $70,000 in a budget of $371 million. That kind of tells me that you're really shaking out the pockets for loose change there. So I wanted to just express my appreciation for looking so hard at savings, and it's really appreciated.
Thank you.
And Mr. Bowles.
Sure. So my question was on revenue increases. You talk about increasing the percentage of enrollment or percentage of attendance, but that still assumes lower enrollment. Have have we given any more consideration to doing what a lot of districts around us do and allowing open enrollment at campuses that are under capacity?
We talked a little bit about that in our committee and felt that that was really something that maybe the board should think about down the road, but we didn't think we could recommend doing that in our capacity. We think there's a bigger picture there that needs to be looked at. So we did not make a recommendation on that, but that's certainly something maybe the committee, the Citizens Committee could look at and make recommendations to the board, because if you start bringing in outside students, then these are non-tax-paying students that are coming in and may, I know what you're saying, put them in the facilities that have the capacity, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. So I think there's more to it than just the financial side that needs to be looked at. But I think that the Citizens Committee would be a great place to throw that out to them and let them chew it up a little bit.
Thanks.
And one thing I wanted to point out was on, I think it was page 10, when we talk about matching our current, staff
Yes.
to actual enrollment, that last bullet point, there will be no layoffs as a result of these staffing adjustments. Can you just educate our community on, and we'll go back to 2010, 2011, some of the things that we did as a district in terms of,
Right. So we looked at teaching staff in particular this year and for next year. And we have retirements. We have families that are moving out with teachers. And so we usually hire about 300 to 350 teachers a year. So we have openings for that. So even back in 2011-12, when we had huge reductions in staff, we were able to do that through attrition. And so we could fill them through the needs that we have. If we cut, if we were to reduce staffing by 100 staff, we could easily fill those with 350 teachers that might be resigning or moving or retiring. So that was the goal all along. The harder thing we did a few years back that we'll look at maybe next year under administrative positions is that the turnover isn't always as easy on the operations side. And so you really got to be careful how you make your adjustments to operations staff so that you don't have any positions that have to be laid off. But we've never had to do that ever.
Thank you, Paul. Any further questions or comments?
Just one, with regard to Mr. Bowen's suggestion, I guess I would like us to think about how we would mechanize throwing that over to the committee for consideration. I'm not sure what we would have to do here, and I'm not sure we have to do anything tonight, but we ought to be thinking about that.
Yeah, and it's staff's intention to take that as an item for discussion.
Good.
And I'm assuming something like that would be handled in DEIC?
You could certainly talk. I would talk about it in every committee I had, quite frankly, because you need a wide range of ideas on that moving forward. But I think ultimately the DEIC probably wouldn't make the decision. It would probably be it's certainly a board decision, but I would think the community input would be good. We have a lot of teachers on DEIC, not as many community members. Okay. Can we get the PowerPoint back up? There we go. I'm going to have Ms. Benzai join me up here, our new CFO. I'm so happy for both Alice and Paul, my proteges. I've been with Alice for 22 years off and on. She taught me everything I know. So you're in good hands. When I went to Galveston ISD as a CFO, she was my finance director, and
Nice.
And she taught me everything I know. So.
Hey, well, good evening. We're going to start tonight. I wanted to mention, Paul had done a page with the budget risks that we discussed last summer when we were setting the budget. And one of the risks was the revenue impact of reduced student enrollment and attendance. And so that's been a true issue all year long. We've been watching every 6 weeks as our attendance numbers come in. We've been monitoring it, and it's really taken a toll. So it's affected, really had the biggest negative impact on the budget this year, along with the rising inflation that we've seen. We had a budget amendment last month to move funds from one function to cover the increased fuel costs in our transportation department. It's something we didn't expect that would hit, but it has had an impact on our budget this year. So I wanted to, one of the things I've been working on over the past several months is trying to just, now that we have our expenditures coming in and we're getting closer to year end, get a better feel for how things are going to pan out this fiscal year with our budget. So we approved a $371 million balanced budget this year. We knew pretty soon when our ADA numbers, attendance numbers were coming in, that we were going to have issues with our state funding. So we've tried to use our best estimates to figure out what our state funding will come in at, what kind of impact we'll have. So we do, in looking at our revenue this year, we do believe we'll come in close to $22 million under our revenue projections. Some of those, we've done several things, including moving some of our expenses this year over to ESSER funds. So we've tried to get in quickly and figure out how we could slow down some of our expenses this year, so we didn't take too big of a hit on the expenditure side. So we do predict our expenditures will come in close to $363 million. So that is going to leave a deficiency of $14.9 million. We still have 3 months left in the year, so we're watching it every month. One of the things, probably in the next 2 weeks, I'll have better figures on what our ADA will come out with, end up with this year. As you recall, the state did come out and give us some help on our first 4 6-week periods. They did a hold harmless to bring our attendance rate up to our 2019-2020 levels. So you see on the right-hand side of this screen, our attendance rates for the first 6 weeks have been brought up to 95.5%. That was the target for CCISD. And that additional revenue helped us out, I believe, $6.5 to $7 million by the state making that allowance. We don't expect that the state will come through on the 5th and 6th 6-week periods. So we are estimating, the projection I have is based on the estimate of the ADA, as you see here on the right side of the screen. In looking at our capital and contingency fund, we are projecting a $61 million beginning balance. And if this financial deficit becomes reality, that would be about 24% of the capital and contingency fund that we would have to use to balance this budget. I did want to make one note that our budget this year was built on receiving $3.7 million in state funding from a property value audit, and those funds came in right before year-end last year. So that's part of the deficit, is that we had to record that revenue in last fiscal year instead of this fiscal year. So I think if we had, we wouldn't have hit, I'm not sure if we'd hit 20% if we'd have had that this year, but, so I did want to mention that. So I will say I've prepared a 22-23 first draft of the budget. This is very preliminary. We actually just received our preliminary tax values from the appraisal districts last week, or the week before, and we received a second set of them as well, because as you know, the state passed a proposition raising the state homestead exemption for our taxpayers from $25,000 to $40,000. So they had to send us a revised set of appraisal values. So we're working on that. I'm working through the numbers to try to understand what our tax rate will calculate out to be with the state funding at play with that. And we probably, the rate I have listed here is what we have projected from last year. It's a reduction, but I think our tax rate may go down on the general fund side by about 4%. projections up, and there's actually 3 columns. The first column is really a worst-case scenario if our attendance came in and we received no help from the state for next year, if it came in at what it came in this year. The second scenario is if our ADA comes in at about what we're at with our revised ADA that with the state's help this year. And then the third scenario on the right-hand side is if we have a normal year with an ADA of 95.5% on our current enrollment. So I'm going to focus when I speak just on the middle column, and as we go through and we're over the next several weeks diving in a little deeper into revenues and our expenditures on the budget, we'll have a better picture. So this is a first blush look at it. We highlighted in green some of the areas that are affecting our budget this year. If you'll see our formula transition grant is down to $2.3 million under the second row of green lines with our average daily attendance of 37,800. So it's right at, there's several things affecting it. As our comp ed funding goes up or our CTE funding goes up, that reduces the amount of formula transition grant funds that we get. So if we keep increasing those special population counts, our formula transition grant could technically go away, and then we would start seeing additional revenue. Going down, Paul mentioned the $3.5 million in additional SHARS Medicaid revenue that we'll receive, so that is an increase to our budget. And then he also mentioned the internal service fund transfers, so we've added that as well. So that brings us to a total revenue of $352.6 million. And so on the next slide, we were focusing on how these expenditure changes are affecting our bottom line on our expenditures. So some of the there's several things listed here, but I'll just go through some of the big ones. And in this scenario, and if I stay in the middle column again, we did want to put in what a 1% salary increase would be and what it would cost the district. So that's pretty much one of the biggest increases on the expenditure side. We also, as we talked about the calendar and its impact on our budget, as we utilize our teachers for more days in August, it's more of an expenditure. There's a need to increase our payroll budget for that, so that's about $1.1 million. We saw the property and casualty increase that we incurred this year when we renewed our property insurance May 1st. So that's almost $1 million as well. And then some inflationary impacts that we've had on our budget are listed also. We did incorporate our budget and planning committee expenditure reductions that we are recommending. And so we have some, the first piece of that is really certain expenditures that were reclassed to ESSER federal funds for the next year. And so most of those were moving staffing over to ESSER, and also some big items like our annual summer school expenses will be funded out of ESSER, as well as several of our technology subscriptions and systems that annual fees that we pay, we were able to fund those through ESSER as well. Human resources, and Paul and met with the principals this year and did identify several staffing reductions. There's 73 reductions in staffing, and that's mostly core staff subject areas. That comes to a reduction of $4.8 million. So overall, I won't go through all of those, but that's still with those expenditure reductions and those the changes that I mentioned, it's a deficiency of $18 million based on the information that we have right now. Like I said, we're still fine-tuning the revenue and looking at that. One thing that I think we'll see an increase in that I don't have worked into this is interest revenue. The rates have popped up. I think we'll be able to bring that revenue up, interest revenue as well. So that hasn't been worked into this. So we're still fine-tuning it. This is a very first blush look at the budget. We did put on here one thing we always have every year is savings from not spending all of our expenditure budget. So we have listed $5 million here. We're chipping away at that every year, so that, I can't promise 5 million, but that is something that over the years we have achieved, just having additional funds that weren't spent on the expenditure side. And so if that were to come into play, that would hit be a deficit of $13 million that we would again have to go into capital and contingency funds to balance that.
The last page we've got is just showing everything that Alice already talked about, and then it's including a 2% salary increase if the board wants to consider that moving forward. And it just shows at the bottom the impact on the capital and contingency fund. Of course, it increases because you've got another $3 million, basically $2.6 million that you've added to the budget. And so you can see at the bottom that those the spread is going to be much higher than in the previous page. There districts around us, of course, are doing. Casey's telling me all the time that they're doing much more than 1% salary increase. So we wanted to be able to show the board what that might look like moving forward. And we will bring a compensation and benefits plan to the board in July. But over the next weeks, we'll be ferreting that information out to the board in Friday packet information so that you'll know what the impact might be as we move forward. We're hoping for the best, but we got to plan for the worst because we've seen that our enrollment did not jump up once COVID. We thought it would this year. We're hoping that we're being very conservative here, and that enrollment will jump back up next year. That I think we're already seeing. Ms. Hughes already is providing information on pre-K. Pre-K numbers are really jumping up way above what they were this current year for next year. So I think we're hoping that families are going to start bringing their kids back that have kept them at home, and certainly at those early levels, pre-K, K, 1 and 2. If we get those kids start coming back in, that'll be helpful. We didn't lose as many students at our high schools this last year. We stayed pretty good shape, but it's really that elementary level that's hurt. So with that, we'll just, I've got a little summary at the end, but it's just that we've got a hill to climb over the next 3 to 5 years. The Budget and Planning Committee looked at many options to reduce the deficit over the next 3 years, and due to time constraints, there are options that still need to be evaluated next year and beyond. So I know that this is not a one-time, one-and-done thing. It's going to continue forward. We recommend that we continue with this type of committee and also with the Citizens Committee that will be established due to the superintendent's targets. And so and the other thing is just we got to work with our legislators. We got to talk to them and let them understand kind of where we're at and where other school districts are at. This is not a Clear Creek ISD only issue. I've talked to school district CFOs across the state, and everybody's seeing the same thing that we are. There's a few pockets where, like Lamar Consolidated, that are just growing astronomically, that are not in the same situation we are, but most districts are in the same boat that we're in with the enrollment declines and ADA declines. So with that, we'll open it up for any further discussion. Be glad to answer any questions.
I'll open it up for Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you. Thanks, Allison. Paul, I appreciate all of this information and kind of forward-looking forecasting. A question for you about the line item titled Staffing Reductions. Is that, I think earlier you mentioned staffing that had increased during the pandemic. Is this a reduction of that? Is it a right sizing of that?
It's a right sizing. So when we came into the pandemic, we were at 42,500 enrollment, and we're down around 40,800. And we thought that enrollment would come back, bounce back, and that's how we budgeted appropriately for this year, and it didn't bounce back and stayed at that same level. So really, we've looked at our enrollment and our and tried to right-size that enrollment, that teaching staff with the enrollment that we have, and that's what the reductions are.
And so do these, are we able to address these reductions through attrition that would
Yes.
occur?
Yes, I think, Kate, Dr. O'Price, I think we filled all of them, haven't we?
So just to highlight, Dr. Price, one of the phrases he said, or remain in their current position. And so, while HR is cautiously optimistic that they would all be placed prior to heading into the new school year, if not, they would be maintained in their current position. There would not be reductions in force as a result of this.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowen?
Kind of on that same item, of these 73 FTEs, are all of these teachers and faculty members who are they're in jobs that have direct student contact, right?
Correct.
And so these reductions are just based on the fact that the population of students is smaller.
Correct.
So have there been any consideration of similar attrition, taking advantage of attrition in positions in the district that don't have a direct student involvement, instructional coaches, administration, and other staff?
We didn't look strongly at those this year, but that's something I'm recommending for next year, because I think that we need to do our part on the administration side as well, as if we're cutting positions on the teaching side. And so we really focused on right-sizing the enrollment to teacher ratio this year, and that'll be a recommendation for next year. Yes, sir.
Makes sense. Question, or maybe some clarification, because I think there's a lot of people that have the misunderstanding about all these property tax dollars that are getting paid out right now. And understanding that the district is capped at 2.5%, I believe that's the number, while people's values are going up 10%, right?
Right.
That money's going to Austin and not making it back here by law, right?
Yeah.
Funding formula.
Yeah. The way the funding formula is, House Bill 3 set a limit on how much school districts could actually charge their local taxpayers in value growth. And so the 2.5% is the ceiling for us. Once our values start going above 2.5%, our tax rate starts going down. So that's why you saw last year a 4.6 cent reduction in our general fund maintenance and operations tax rate. And that's the formula is set so that we'll probably see another 4-cent decline in our tax rate again this year. So we're giving property tax relief to our taxpayers here through our tax rate dropping, and the values are still going to go up, but we don't get those funds.
Right.
We're dropping our tax rate.
And I think that's important for people to just understand, that they're paying more in property taxes, but doesn't mean that the money is coming back to the
Right.
district. It's to be clear on that. And you even made reference of what people can do about that, which is to collaborate with your local chambers of commerce, reach out to the local elected officials, that where the problem lies is with that funding formula. And how I would love to see teachers getting the 2% raise or a 3% raise. And I think that should be the goal always. 1%'s not fair, especially with inflation. Even, the 2.5%, of what we get, inflation is 8 to 10%. So we're not able to afford our business, and our employees or the district's employees aren't able to afford simple groceries and gas prices and things like that as well. So, the district, the ripple effect of the problem, is just passed on. So, but just as long as, like I said, you can explain that and make sure everybody does understand.
Yeah, capping us at 2.5% when inflation's 7 or 8% is not very helpful for teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Paul and Alice.
I just have.
Mr. Larson?
Yeah. And I hope these are not really basic questions, but I think I'm going to be Captain Obvious here. First, I want to look at page 21. and I'm just looking at the middle column. And I'm coming down there 3 lines from the bottom, and do I correctly understand that the ends don't meet to a tune of 13 million?
Correct.
Okay. Can you give me some kind of feel as to, I know this is draft, can you give me some kind of feel as to how optimistic you are that we might be able to close that gap between now and the time that we actually get to working off this budget?
For this year,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a chance that we're gonna get rid of that 13.
Okay. I appreciate your.
That's for 23, 22, 23, coming.
Yeah.
For next year.
Yeah, I do appreciate your honesty there. And the other thing is, with all the, everybody knows what the inflation we're getting hit with. Everyone knows this when we go to the pump. And we just got done a few minutes ago where you literally went through the district's pockets looking for loose change, and I see that after all your puts and takes, you're actually spending less money instead of considerably more money. And I just wanted to say that that's amazing, and I really appreciate that work as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Bone?
Yeah, I guess just one final comment, and it kind of deals with my question earlier. I mean, I know this is a draft, and I know there are plans for future years, but when we have a final budget put in front of us, we cannot have a budget that eliminates 73 teaching positions and leaves non-teaching and administrative faculty positions completely untouched. So something about that needs to be right-sized, I think, and whether that means that means that we identify critical teaching positions that need to be preserved, and I think the community has spoken about a few potentially, or we have to go back and look more in administration. That cannot be the balance of employment that has changed. So I really appreciate this effort, and I know a ton of work went into it, but I think that refinement is needed to it before we get to a final product.
And I'll observe that there are additional details to be shared. There are some positions that have been identified that aren't in this presentation that are district level reductions, a relatively small number. There are also positions, for example, in special education that are being eliminated, that are some non-teaching, that are not teacher positions, that are being reapplied to reduce the net increase. So there is a tentative slight net increase, but it's a matter of repurposing rather than just adding. Part of the challenge is that the teaching positions make up the overwhelming bulk of all positions, and they are tied to enrollment. What has not occurred is an increase in non-teaching positions that has kept pace with the enrollment growth. And so we've had a significant increase in teaching positions through a year, tracking the enrollment growth, but there's not been a significant increase in the other positions. So that's what makes it harder heading into the coming year. The reduction in teaching positions, again, is a return to the level to class sizes that we had pre-pandemic. So that it is not a relative de-emphasis on the importance of teachers. It's really a returning to the level of staffing ratios that we had a few years ago. So we absolutely will look at all positions. Heading into what would be proposed, it's going to be a relatively small number of positions that aren't teaching positions for this coming year, but heading into future years, obviously, nothing can be off the table.
Thanks.
Just to kind of highlight that point, Paul, can you remind us again what our administrative costs are normally compared to, the state average?
Well, we've got several metrics. I guess the administrative cost ratio is probably the one that we look at closest, and we're about 4.7%. We're under 5%, and the state average is the state allowed is about 8%. So we're about half of, roughly, half of, what, the state allows. We're 2%, our administrative costs just by themselves are 2% of our total, budget.
Because I hear that, and I don't think people understand that that was one of the first areas back in 2008 that we really
We
cut
cut about
before we did teachers or anything else.
Got about
so-
72 custodial positions, and that we've never brought back.
Right.
Back then.
Can I say something? Real quick, since you mentioned that 2%, at the, inside CCISD, you did the pie chart presentation, you know, that shows where literally every penny of every dollar goes. And it showed that 2% or 2 cents of every
2 cents of every dollar, yeah.
goes to administration. So I think maybe in the future, whenever y'all are getting the presentation out.
Yeah, that'd be a great
Since that
graphic.
was brought up, that graph would help people put that in perspective when they're wondering where every penny of every dollar goes. And,
Yeah,
you know,
65 cents of every dollar goes in direct classroom instructions.
Correct. So, but that's a great
That's a good graphic. we
visual
use.
graphic.
Actually, no.
What I would ask is if, you can, give, contact information to either of the staff members seated, at the table here, and we'll get back to you. We'd be happy, we want to get you information. Okay.
Any further comment? Thank you once again for this presentation. And seeing no further business before the board, I will adjourn us at 9:19.